it was similar to Florida's. 2, if there was, the process of getting a permit was defined, limited, and configured in such a way there was little wiggle room, and authorities will be held accountable for it. If we had a whole package of all of that, and then we based it on convictions, yes.
Mm-hmm. It's just interesting. I mean, in the Brady case, Brady example, there was a Prince case that went up to the United States Supreme Court where the NRA filed a brief and argued in that brief states' rights, right? And here, in present day, we don't want to make a states' rights argument because we don't like our laws, we like some other states' laws. But if we were able to fix the state's laws in a way, and our state's laws in a way that you would deem them to be acceptable, then we could make sort of the sovereign states' rights argument again. And I just find that argument to be a little inconsistent, recognizing, of course, that you alone haven't put that forth. There have been a number of witnesses today and in other hearings who have put that forth. But I fundamentally have a problem with the fact that Pennsylvania is allowing some other state to dictate to us who carries and who doesn't. And more importantly, and I think you would agree with the second point, what we're allowed to know about our residents and what we're not, even just their names. And I'm glad that we'll be able to work together on trying to figure out who those 31
Well, we have a
people are.
law on the divulging of names of concealed carry permit holders that some states don't have. They have put the personal information of concealed carry permit holders that happen in Virginia and several other states. They gave it to newspapers. So there is a fine line law enforcement must tread not to violate that law, and that's why in my testimony I raised that point, that how could you make that assignation unless you had the names? If you didn't have the names, wasn't it misleading to make that generalization?
If someone has a permit today, I just want to make sure I understand your point. If they have a Pennsylvania concealed carry permit today, is that information made publicly available?
No.
Right, okay. So I'm not suggesting we get those 3,100 names from Florida and make that public. That was not where I was going with that.
Okay.
So just so we understand each other. I guess, again, to me, and I've said this publicly several times, whether you're on the left or the right or the middle on this issue, whether you're in the NRA or you're in ceasefire PA, I think we can all agree that we would all be better suited having Pennsylvania laws govern. And what I had hoped that would come out of this hearing today, and I think you're helping this process along, is that we could start to begin to come to some agreement on where Pennsylvania law can both be strengthened and addressed, from recognizing your concerns about the permitting process, so that we can be in a position of having sovereignty as a Commonwealth and not relying on some other state's process. Because when we do rely on that other state's process, then we run into the fact that we have a lieutenant from Philadelphia who picks up the phone or whomever and tries to find out information about a Philadelphia resident and can't. And that puts our law enforcement at risk. That puts us in a position of really, I think, being behind the 8 ball as opposed to being ahead of the curve. And hopefully we can begin to work together on finding some common ground. I'm glad that we'll be able to work together, at least on the issue of addressing things in Florida. And I want to echo what Representative Lynn said. Thank you for making the trek out east today, and appreciate very much your testimony.
It's my pleasure, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do you want this data on the revocation, sir?
Yeah, if we do want to submit it for the record, and we'll make sure all the members get a copy of that, then that's okay. We need a break. Stenographer needs a break. I'll take 5 minutes.